Panama Wings by J.T. Lawrence. "You think he's guilty?" Devil asks. Robin Sussman pulls the key out of the ignition and wrenches the door handle of her bashed-up Honda. "Yes," she climbs out. "I'm just not sure what of." They lope to the gate in the shade of the palms, buzz the intercom, and after 3 beats, the metal lock clicks open. Bulak waits at the front door, dishevelled and scratching his 3-day-long stubble. De Villiers holds up his detective badge, and Bulak squints into the light, as if he's just come from a dark room. "I know who you are." He waves away the ID. "They call you Devil." "Term of endearment," says de Villiers. "Well," says Bulak, rubbing the front of his stained T-shirt, "you'd better come in." The interior of the Bulak's expensive security complex home is as knotty as his appearance. Dirty noodle bowls and crushed beer cans litter the otherwise luxurious-looking carpet. Sussman hides her annoyance at the banality of it all. No matter how much money they have, she thinks, they always fall apart in the same way. Noodle bowls and beer tins, oil-stained pizza boxes and empty whiskey bottles. She's seen this picture 1,000 times. "5 days, says Bulak. Sussman steps closer to the man. Her nostrils twitch. There's this picture, and then there are the ones on the other side of the equation. The reason for the distress. The other half. The better half. In this case, she's sure the worse-off half. "The last time you saw your wife?" Bulak blinks his bleary eyes, clears his throat. "Tuesday, 9 a.m. "Tuesday the 14th of July, and you only reported her missing last night?" "I didn't realize she was missing." Little pops go off in Robin's head. Her fingers tingle. She has the urge to wreck the house even more. She needs to keep her anger under control, be professional. She sends her fury into her jaws and grits her teeth. "You didn't realize she was missing?" Devil's using his pen to lift the edge of a receipt on the flecked black marble of the kitchen island. "Curry den," it says. 228 rand. "I just thought..." He gazes at the floor, but doesn't finish his sentence. "You thought she left you?" says Sussman. He looks up at her. "You didn't want to phone the police about your wife leaving you?" "Yes. And she travels a lot, you know, for the agency. She could have just forgotten to tell me." "But then you couldn't get hold of her. Her parents haven't heard from her, her best friend. She hasn't used any of her bank cards." "And she didn't take anything with her," Bulak says, scrubbing his greasy black hair with his knuckles. "She didn't pack a bag. Her passport is still here." "Her best friend?" says Devil. "You mean Sasha Noon?" Noon had also only called them yesterday. Would you wait 4 days before alerting the police to the disappearance of your closest friend? Would you even know she was missing? "You've been in contact with Noon?" asks Devil. "No," says Bulak. He's lying. He looks at a framed picture on the wall. 2 schoolgirls in blue uniforms with their arms around each other's shoulders. They could be sisters. "Funny," says Sussman. "Funny?" "That you both reported her missing yesterday. You both waited 4 days. We guessed that maybe you talked." "No," he says. De Villiers crosses his arms. He's definitely lying. Robin snaps on her latex gloves and finds the passport and other clues that Mrs. Bulak, Ursula Bulak, had not packed up and left her husband. A makeup bag, a pink razor, a full underwear drawer, a brush with plenty of long, dark hair tangled up in its bristles. Sussman zips up the razor and hairbrush in a clear plastic bag, pockets it, then pokes around a bit more. In the bin, she finds used tissues, a cotton pad smeared with mascara, and an empty, torn box of Femcycle. She looks for the missing pills on the bedside table and in the drawer, but all she finds is a hospital admission bracelet and a Spanish dictionary. They'd be back with a full forensic team to test for bloodstains and foreign fingerprints, but she'd have to push for that. The station is understaffed and under-resourced, and she'd have to give a very good reason if she wanted a morning of luminol and blue light. Usually, you'd need a dead body before qualifying for such luxuries. Bulak watches her. "Was your wife on contraception?" she asks him. He looks shocked by the question, buries his hands in his hair again. It could really do with a wash. Robin frowns at him. What? You don't know? No. Were you trying for children? No. You used condoms. Bulak shakes his head. What does this have to do with anything? Just gathering facts, Mr. Bulak. I've now learnt that you two either weren't having sex or you weren't close enough to know what kind of birth control she was on. Is on, says Bulak. What birth control she is on. She's not dead. Sussman runs the pads of her fingers over the transparent plastic straining against the hard brush bristles in her pocket. Isn't she? She wants to ask, but doesn't. Best not to push him too far too soon. There would be time for that. What was that about? Asks Devil when they're back in the sun-bleached Honda. A long time ago, it used to be cherry red. Now, it's more like a tawny rust. Sometimes Robin thinks that is what her heart must look like. Faded, corroded, scented with copper. Sussman's eyebrows arch. They're on the highway, and she forces herself to look out the window, at the sky. The blue is woven through with the white cotton thread of cirrus clouds. The fact-gathering bullshit. It's not bullshit. Every detail matters. She licks knick-knack crumbs off her fingers and turns the radio on, crumples the foil packet into a ball and pushes it into the hard pocket of the car door. Every detail matters. Shouldn't the devil of all people know that? Sussman sees these kinds of details as iron shavings on a board, and the crime is the hidden magnet. Sooner or later, enough of the pieces will point in the right direction. On television series and films, there are often substantial clues, the kind that form the turning point of the investigation. And while these are great for entertainment, and they certainly do happen in real cases, in Robin's experience, you're not always fortunate enough to catch a break like that. So you need to be clever and cautious with the small things, the things less intuitive cops miss. You owe it to the victim to notice them, to paint the invisible visible, and in doing so, if you're lucky, you'll paint the victim visible too. Robin jabs at the radio dash, trying to find the right channel. So, she didn't pack anything, right? Her passport, her bags, they're all still there. Yes, says Devil, eyes on the road. It's not looking good for the Bulaks. Agreed. Sussman finally finds a station broadcasting the news. But there was still one thing missing. Her contraceptive pill, says de Villiers. It might be a coincidence, or a red herring. A rust-coloured red herring. But you don't think it is? Whenever I pack to go anywhere, before I leave the house, the detective laughs. Since when do you go anywhere? Robin ignores the jibe. I never worry about what I've left behind, because things like hairbrushes can easily be replaced. But I always make sure I have two things, my wallet and my pill. The radio show host reads the latest news and plays a few clips of an earlier interview. If found, the E-340 debris will furnish clues to events on board before the aircraft crashed. As the search for the missing plane continues, there have been competing theories that it suffered mechanical failure or was intentionally flown off course. Boeings don't just go missing, said South Africa's head of aviation security. Someone may have deliberately switched off the plane's transponder. We're doing everything we can to support Panama Wings in their investigation. It's weird, isn't it? Sussman's craving coffee now. Maybe she'll buy one for Devil. They take their caffeine fix the same way. White, no sugar. How does a plane just disappear? A huge capsule of steel and glass flying through the sky just like any other day, and then, crack, it disappears out of existence. Not out of existence, says de Villiers. You heard what he said. Just because we can't find it doesn't mean it's disappeared. It's good to have Devil here, to ground her. Sometimes she gets wrapped up in her own head, and then the world seems like an incredibly unstable place. She's got enough to deal with people living and dying, killing and surviving, without having to think of objects and humans randomly popping in and out of existence. We'll only know for certain what happened when we find that black box, says the man on the radio. So, did she leave him, or is she dead? Wonders Devil aloud. Unfortunately, those things are not mutually exclusive. Devil grunts in agreement and removes a piece of flint from the knee of his navy trousers. Suzman switches off the radio. I think she's dead. Shit. Devil knows that Suzman has a knack for these things. When they first started working together, before the bad things happened to her, before it all fell apart, he learned what she has always known, that she has an otherworldly knack for knowing when someone has died, even if she'd never met them. They pull up outside a takeaway coffee shop. The car behind them hoots for taking too long to park, and Robin broadcasts a middle finger. How do you know? He asks. That she's dead. I don't know. It's just a feeling. I could be wrong. Yeah, well, there's a first time for everything. Back at the station, Kaya catcalls Suzman as she walks in, and she smacks him on the back of his head with the case file she's holding. Didn't your mother teach you any manners? She asks. Don't get me started on Kaya's mother, says Blum. Tick, says Kaya, and clicks his tongue. Stop it, you lot, says de Villiers. Haven't you got work to do? Blum stands up and hands Devil a piece of paper from his worryingly tidy desk. The report you asked for, he says. Jane Doe. The list is short. Only 3 women's bodies fitting the description of Ursula Bulak have been found in the last week. The DNA on the hairbrush Robin brought in will be cross-referenced with the remains, but she can't help looking at the ID shots. All 3 women have dark hair, same as Ursula, but judging from the teeth and cheekbones, Suzman shakes her head. Not there, asks Kaya. No point in guessing. Tell the lab to hurry up, will you? Kaya brings Robin a sandwich and a mug of grey coffee. That missing plane, says Suzman. Can we get a passenger list? De Villiers frowns at her. She wasn't on that plane. Robin shoots him a look. Prove it. You heard the woman, de Villiers says to Kaya. Snap, snap. After Kaya leaves, Suzman takes a sip of the coffee and pulls a face. The detective laughs. Be honest. You've missed being here. Nope. You have. I haven't. You can't be serious. What do you do all day at that farm anyway? It's in the middle of bloody nowhere. Yes, that's the point. That's why I bought it. No, man. You belong here. Can't you feel it? No, I belong in the Free State. At home is where she can breathe the air and stretch her limbs without feeling like she's bumping into shadows everywhere she turns. Because that's what Joburg is like for her, a forest of elbow-to-elbow ghosts. Jesus, Suzman, we need you. You may not need us, but it's not the same here without you. Well, I need the farm. And the lambs, they need me. The fucking sheep. Aren't you as bored as shit out there? Devil almost breaks the pencil he's gripping in both hands. Never bored. There's lots to do. I'm up at 4 a.m. most mornings to get it all done. He tosses the pencil into his bird's nest of a desk and shakes his head. It's just such a waste, he says. Such a goddamn waste. At night, in her Johannesburg hotel, Robin can hear the lambs crying for her in her sleep. It's one of her less terrifying dreams. I found something, says Blom, leaning against the doorframe of de Villiers' office. That's why you're my favourite, says Robin. Hey, shouts Kaya from his desk next door. I brought you a sandwich. Suzman yells back through the chipboard wall. That sandwich was not fit for human consumption. Blom stands on his toes to look over Suzman's shoulder and sees in her bin the crumpled ball of wax paper. The sandwich is gone. He smirks. Spit it out, Blom, says de Villiers. His cheeks are red. He's still annoyed at Robin for being stubborn. Detective Suzman asked me to... She's not a detective, says Devil. Not anymore. Sorry, Blom says. Some habits are hard to break. I asked you to check the Bulak paper trail, says Robin. Lots of debt. We're talking mountains here. She owned a travel agency and it was tanking. And the hospital bills, says Blom. Ursula Bulak was in ICU in April. I asked for the medical records, but they were cagey. Says Suzman. Also, there was a new debit order on their joint account, says Blom. 3 months' worth of payments. I traced it to First Lib. Ah, says Robin, sitting back in her chair. Now that is interesting. Let me guess, says de Villiers. Mr. Bulak took out insurance on his wife's life. What an idiot, says Robin. He may as well have made a bright green neon flashing sign pointing to himself. 10 million flashing signs, says Blom, and Devil whistles. Good catch, says Suzman. But you don't get the day off. I want you to keep digging. We have a body to find. De Villiers turns up the volume on the station's TV. Hey, breaking news. They found that plane. There is a helicopter and diver footage of the smoky fuselage. Wreckage floating in the ocean. Over 200 passengers dead. As Robin stares at the screen, it feels as if the blue of the sea will seep into her and make her cold forever. Fuck, says Suzman. Where's that passenger list? Kaya shrugs. Dead end. Excuse the pun. What do you mean? Sorry, that was pretty tasteless. I'll take my foot out of my mouth now. No, I mean, why is it a dead end? There was only one South African on the plane. A man. I didn't ask you how many South Africans were on the plane. I asked you for a passenger list. Kaya sighs and pretends to curtsy. Yes, madam. I love it when you call me that, says Robin, and Blom scoffs. I don't know what your obsession is with that plane, says de Villiers. She didn't take her passport, remember? Robin switches off the TV, but it's too late. The cool blue salt water is in her veins. Her hands start to shake, so she shoves them deep into her pockets. Of the 231 passengers on the Panama Wings E340 flight, 96 were adult women, 28 of whom were around Ursula Bulak's age. Of those, only one of the bodies was unidentified. They couldn't explain it, says Kaya. They said this body didn't match anyone on the passenger list. Says Suzman, biting down on the cheap ballpoint pen in her mouth. No way it's her, says Devil. That's reaching, even for you and your magic hunches. Anyway, what does Ursula Bulak have to do with Panama? Clive Bulak said she used to travel a lot for work, right? To Panama? She owned a travel agency. But her passport didn't have one stamp in it. Not one. Okay, that is strange. Not strange, says Blom, sauntering in. My wife does it all the time. We don't want to know what your wife does all the time, jokes Kaya, but no one laughs. Margarita's dual citizenship. She travels on her Dutch passport. Bulak doesn't have dual citizenship, says Kaya. I checked. Send them Bulak's DNA, says Suzman. You're crazy, says de Villiers. Kaya looks at him, then Robin, then back at the detective. Well, says Devil, what are you waiting for? Lab came back with a negative match on the Jane Does, calls Blom. Thanks, yells Robin, standing and arching her stiff back. She isn't used to sitting in offices anymore. She does some breathing work and stretches. Can I have some of whatever it is you're smoking? Asks Kaya. What? Says Robin. She's distracted and only half listening. Are you going to make me another sandwich? The Panama people, he says. They're on the phone for you. Impossible, says de Villiers. But now there is a glint in his eyes. Suzman almost stumbles over the brown box of paperwork in her way. She regains her balance, but not before Devil says, smooth. When she reaches the old telephone, she's so keen to hear the voice on the other side, she feels like crawling into the receiver. We have an odd situation, says the man who doesn't introduce himself. His accent is Rio and Roses. The DNA matched? Robin says. Who is she? He wants to know. How did she get on our plane? Is she definitely dead? I am looking at her right now. She's definitely dead. Can you get someone to send me the passport information of the missing woman? The woman she was supposed to be? I'll do it personally. Sasha Noon, says Kaya. The name in the fake UK passport. It's not fake, says Robin. Holy shit. De Villiers stands and grabs his jacket. What is going on here? Suzman pats her pockets for her car keys. Let's go pay a visit to Noon. Bulak's black SLK is parked outside Sasha Noon's house. As soon as Robin steps out of her car, she hears the fighting. Devil raises his eyebrows. Bulak's voice gets louder, and a woman, Robin guesses as Sasha, starts to scream at him to leave. Devil presses the button to ring the doorbell. Either it's not working, or the couple ignore the sound. The screaming increases in volume, and then she is quiet, as if her air has been cut off. "Bulak!" shouts Sussman, rattling the gate. "Bulak!" Devil has his Z88 in his hands. Robin didn't even see him reach for it. "Clive, Bulak!" shouts Robin, her nerves popping. "He's going to kill her," she says. The detective pushes her backwards and out of the way and blows a hole in the lock of the pedestrian gate. The bullet zings and the lock smokes, and they run into the property. Robin's got her gun out now too, and they barge through the wide front door looking for Noon. "Sasha!" she shouts. "Where are you?" They rush into empty rooms and then into the main bedroom, where Bulak has his hands wrapped around Sasha Noon's neck and her eyes are bulging. Devil holsters his gun and throws himself on Bulak, hauling him off the woman. Robin aims her 9mm at his chest. "Easy now," she says. With one eye on Clive, she holds out her hand to Sasha, but she won't get up. She lies there on her white bed, and her hands creep up to her throat. She lets out strangled sobs. Bulak's also crying now. "It's your fault," he yells at her while they both cry. "Simmer down, Bulak," says de Villiers. Sasha says something, but it comes out garbled. "What's that?" asks Robin. "What are you trying to say?" She strains to talk. Her neck is white and purple and snaked with angry veins. "He's right," she says, and weeps. "It's my fault she's dead." 20 minutes later, Sasha Noon is curled up in a dressing gown and sipping tea in the large wing-back chair in her open-plan kitchen. Her dark hair is striking against the white robe. "I can take you to hospital," says Robin. "It's not necessary," says Noon. "No harm done. Not really." Her eyes are still bloodshot from the pressure of Bulak's hands around her neck. "No harm done," says Sussman. The sooner she sees Bulak in prison, the better. Devil was busy interrogating him outside in the garden. At least they have a reason to arrest him now. "I mean, I'm still alive." Her implication hangs in the air. "Why did you say that it's your fault that Ursula's dead?" Her face crumples, and Sussman thinks she's going to cry again, but she doesn't. "They always said we look like sisters," Sasha says. "Since school. Did you know that we went to school together?" "No," says Sussman, but then she remembers the photograph of the two girls in blue uniform, a white school crest on their hats. "They used to mix up our names. We used to play along. We swapped clothes and cut our hair in the same style. Twins, they used to say. Even our parents." "So Ursula used your UK ID to book that flight to Panama?" "Yes. You gave her your passport and your bank cards." "It wasn't the first time. We had a few trial runs first to make sure we could pull it off." "She used it for her work trips?" "Yes," says Sasha. Nobody blinked an eyelid. "Why did you do it? Was it just a game?" "No. It was part of our plan. We had everything planned. It took months to organize." "Your plan?" "To help Ursula disappear." Sasha blinks away the persistent tears, then wipes her wet cheeks on the sleeve of her robe. She sniffs and pulls herself together. "Clive was abusive to her?" Robin asks. "No," Sasha shakes her head. "No, nothing like that. But their marriage was over, and he was clinging to it. She didn't have the energy for the fight, or the money for a divorce. Her business had been struggling, and she was in debt. A lot of debt. She kept on applying for more and more credit, but the banks had started to refuse her. She just felt like she would never be able to get out of the hole she was in. That's how she described it. A giant hole she couldn't imagine climbing out of." "Was she depressed?" asks Robin. "More than that. One night she phoned me at 2 a.m. and she was just crying, hysterical, said she couldn't do it anymore." "Do what?" "She'd bought pills, a whole lot of pills, and a bottle of gin. She was phoning to say goodbye." "You took her to the hospital?" "They pumped her stomach. 2 nights in ICU. When Clive found out he lost it, it made things even worse. I knew she would try to commit suicide again, so we came up with a plan together to give her a brand new life. In Panama. She knew the area, had done some consulting for a hotel group. She even spoke a little Spanish. She was supposed to live in a small village in Boquete, surrounded by coffee plantations and green hills. Start over, you know. But then the plane crashed. If Devil had been in this conversation, he'd say, and then the fucking plane crashed. Sasha's fingers find their way back to her bruised neck over and over again. It's so crazy. So surreal. I feel like I'm dreaming. I can't believe she's dead. This was supposed to save her life. I'm sorry for your loss, says Robin. She is dead, right? I mean, she didn't pull a last-minute plot twist and get on another plane altogether. Unfortunately not. The DNA match was conclusive. They'll repatriate the body to the South African authorities. Sasha gets a faraway look in her eyes. She doesn't want to listen to talk of bodies, not when it's her dearest friend they're discussing. She did say it would be too good to be true, when we fantasized about what her new life would be like there. She said she'd get some chickens and live off pancakes and the fruit trees on the property. I joked she'd meet a handsome local and have sun-bronzed Panama babies. Sasha smiles, luxuriating in the daydream. Robin thinks of her own paradise, her lonely farm, and is relieved she'll be able to return soon. She misses the warmth and the scent of the lambs, the red soil, the gold shimmers in the air as the sun sinks down. The dream evaporates, and Sasha sniffs again, holds her neck. It was supposed to save her life. The end.